I built an empire worth billions, but I couldn't say 3 words without breaking. Victoria Hale, 30 years old, Forbes cover regular, untouchable in every boardroom she entered, was about to walk into a coffee shop for a blind date. Not a merger, not a negotiation, a date. And she was shaking like she'd never shaken before a deal in her life. Because the man waiting inside didn't know her secret yet. If you want to see how a woman who had everything risked it all for something she thought she'd never deserve, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The parking lot outside Brennan's coffee house was almost empty. That was intentional. Victoria had chosen this place specifically because it was 30 minutes outside the city, tucked into a neighborhood where nobody knew her face, nobody followed financial news, and nobody would recognize the woman whose signature had moved markets. She sat in her Tesla with the engine off, hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only solid thing left in the world. Her phone buzzed. Again. Marcus. Assistant. Car's waiting if you need an exit strategy. Marcus. Just say the word. She didn't answer. Through the coffee shop window, she could see him. Ethan Brooks. 32. According to the profile her friend Rachel had shoved at her 3 weeks ago, with the kind of aggressive optimism only a happily married person could muster. Dark hair, calm posture, sitting at a corner table with a book he wasn't really reading. He looked normal, comfortable in his own skin in a way Victoria had never managed. He's a good guy, Vic, Rachel had said, practically glowing with matchmaker pride. Single dad, works in graphic design, volunteers at his kid's school, no ego, just solid. Solid. Victoria didn't do solid, she did calculated. She did controlled. She did transactions with clear terms and measurable outcomes. She did not do blind dates, but Rachel had worn her down. You can't spend your whole life in boardrooms, she'd said. You're 30, not 80. When's the last time you went on an actual date? And I don't mean those networking dinners where men pitch you investments between courses. Victoria had tried to argue. Failed. And now here she was, 20 minutes late, stalling in a parking lot like a teenager. Her reflection stared back at her from the rearview mirror. Hair perfect. Makeup flawless. Outfit expensive but deliberately understated. Designer jeans, cashmere sweater, nothing flashy. She looked like she had her life together. She looked like a lie. Because the moment she opened her mouth, the illusion would shatter. Her phone buzzed again. Different contact this time. Rachel. You better not be sitting in that parking lot talking yourself out of this. Rachel. I can see your location, Hale. Get your billionaire butt inside. Victoria let out a shaky breath and typed back. What if he... She deleted it. Tried again. I don't think I can... Deleted that too. Victoria. I'm going in. Rachel. Finally, you've got this. Just be yourself. Be yourself. Easy advice when yourself didn't fracture into pieces the second you tried to speak. Victoria had built her entire professional life around controlling the narrative. In meetings, she prepared every word in advance, rehearsed until her speech flowed smooth, timed her pauses strategically. She'd learned to mask the stutter so well that most people never noticed. And when they did, she had other tools, icy stares, sharp pivots, the kind of commanding presence that made people forget what they'd heard. But this wasn't a boardroom. This was a date, with a man who would expect spontaneity, naturalness, the kind of easy conversation Victoria had spent 3 decades avoiding. She checked her reflection one more time, grabbed her phone, and forced herself out of the car before she could spiral further. The afternoon air was cold, sharp against her face. March in the Midwest didn't apologize for anything. She crossed the parking lot in 12 steps. She counted and pushed through the coffee shop door. Warmth hit her immediately. The smell of roasted beans and cinnamon, soft acoustic music playing overhead, a handful of customers scattered at tables, none of them looking up. And there, at the corner table by the window, Ethan Brooks glanced up from his book. Their eyes met. He smiled. Not the calculated smile of someone trying to impress. Just friendly, open. Victoria's stomach dropped. She forced her legs to move, weaving between tables until she reached him. He stood, closing his book, something about urban architecture, she noticed, and extended his hand. Victoria? His voice was warm, unhurried. I'm Ethan. It's really nice to meet you. She took his hand, Her palm was sweating. His wasn't. Hi. The word caught, just barely, but enough that she felt it. Sorry, I'm late. There it was. 2 sentences in, and already her voice was betraying her. If he noticed, he didn't show it. Don't worry about it. I just got here myself. A lie, probably, to make her feel better. Can I get you something? Coffee? Tea? I'll get it, Victoria said quickly, already moving toward the counter before he could respond. She needed a moment, just 30 seconds to breathe, to pull herself together, to remember how she'd done this before. The techniques, the tricks, the mental rewiring her speech therapist had drilled into her as a teenager. The barista, a college-age kid with impressive eyeliner, barely looked up. What can I get you? Latte? Medium. Victoria pulled out her credit card, hand trembling just slightly. Almond milk. Name? Victoria. The barista scribbled something on a cup and slid the card reader toward her. Victoria tapped her card, grabbed her receipt, and stepped aside to wait. Behind her, she could feel Ethan's presence at the table. Not watching her exactly, just there, existing in the same space while she tried not to unravel. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. Need that exit strategy yet? Victoria. No. Marcus. You sure? I can have you out in 3 minutes. Victoria. I'm fine. She wasn't fine, but she also wasn't running. Not yet. Medium almond latte for Victoria. She collected her drink, gripped the warm cup like a lifeline, and walked back to the table. Ethan had settled back into his seat, relaxed in a way that made Victoria acutely aware of how rigid her own posture was. She sat down across from him, set her latte carefully on the table, and tried to remember how normal human beings started conversations. So, Ethan said, saving her from having to speak first. Rachel tells me you work in finance? Victoria nodded. Safe territory. Work was rehearsed. I run an investment firm? Private equity, mostly. That sounds intense. It can be. She wrapped both hands around her cup. What about you? Rachel mentioned graphic design? Yeah. His face lit up slightly. Freelance, mostly. I work with small businesses, branding, web design, that kind of thing. It's not glamorous, but I like the flexibility, especially with my son. How old is he? 7. His name's Oliver. Ethan pulled out his phone, swiped through photos with the easy pride of a parent who didn't need an excuse to show off his kid. He turned the screen toward her. That's him at his last soccer game, number 12. Victoria looked at the photo. A small boy with Ethan's dark hair and a gap-toothed grin, muddy cleats, holding a trophy almost as big as his torso. He's cute, she said, and meant it. He's a handful. Ethan tucked his phone away. But he's a good kid. Been through a lot for someone so young. There was something in the way he said it, not bitter, just factual, that made Victoria curious. But before she could ask, Ethan shifted the conversation. What about you? Do you have any? He stopped himself. Sorry, that's probably too personal for a first question. It's okay. Victoria took a sip of her latte, buying herself a second. No kids, no real relationships in a while, actually. Work keeps you busy? Something like that. It wasn't work. It was easier to let people think that than to explain the truth. That dating required vulnerability she'd spent her entire life learning not to show. Ethan nodded, didn't push. I get that. After Oliver's mom left, I didn't date for years. Couldn't figure out how to balance it. Still not sure I have, honestly, but Rachel convinced me to try. She's persistent. That's one word for it. He grinned. I think she threatened to show up at my house with a stack of dating profiles if I didn't agree to at least one setup. Victoria almost smiled. She did the same to me, except she actually showed up at my office during a meeting. Ethan laughed, genuine, surprised. That's incredible. It was mortifying, but effective, unfortunately. The conversation settled into something easier after that. Ethan asked about her work without prying into details she couldn't share. Victoria asked about his design projects, and he told her about a recent logo redesign for a local bakery that had somehow spiraled into a full rebrand. He was easy to talk to. He didn't interrupt when her words caught, didn't finish her sentences, didn't look uncomfortable or impatient when she had to pause, regroup, try again. 20 minutes passed, then 40. Victoria had stopped checking her phone. "So I have to ask," Ethan said, setting down his empty coffee cup, "how does someone who runs an investment firm end up on a blind date set up by a yoga instructor?" Victoria's mouth twitched. "Rachel and I went to college together. She's been trying to fix my life ever since." "Is your life broken?" The question was light, teasing, but it landed heavier than he probably intended. Not broken," Victoria said slowly. "Just carefully constructed." "That sounds exhausting." "It is." Ethan studied her for a moment, and Victoria felt the urge to look away, to deflect, to do what she always did when someone looked too close. But she didn't. "Can I tell you something?" Ethan asked. "Sure." "I was nervous about this. Meeting you, I mean. Rachel talks you up like you're some kind of superhero. Brilliant, successful, intimidating as hell. Her words, not mine. I almost canceled 3 times. Victoria blinked. "You were nervous?" "Terrified." He said it like it was funny. "I'm a single dad who designs logos for bakeries. What am I supposed to talk about with someone who probably has senators on speed dial?" "I don't have senators on speed dial." "Okay, but you could. That doesn't mean I'm intimidating." You drove up in a Tesla." "That's just a car." "A 6-figure car." Victoria felt heat creeping up her neck. "I wasn't trying to I'm not judging," Ethan said quickly. "I'm just saying, I get it. Being nervous. Wondering if you fit." She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something she recognized. Not fear exactly, but the awareness that this moment mattered, and that made it fragile. "I almost didn't come," Victoria admitted. "What changed your mind?" "I don't know." She turned her latte cup in slow circles. "Maybe I'm tired of being careful all the time." "That makes 2 of us." They sat in the quiet for a moment, the coffee shop humming softly around them. Then Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned slightly. "Sorry, that's my sister. She's watching Oliver." He read the message, typed something back. "Everything's fine. He just wanted to know if he could have ice cream before dinner." "What did you say?" "I said no, which means he's definitely getting ice cream." Victoria surprised herself by laughing, actually laughing. Ethan looked up, grinning. "What?" Nothing. That's just nice." "What is?" "That you care about ice cream. As opposed to?" "I don't know. Most people I meet don't think about things like that." "Most people you meet probably don't have 7-year-olds. "True." Ethan leaned back in his chair, eyes thoughtful. "You know what's weird? I've been sitting here trying to impress you, talking about my work, my kid, all the normal first date stuff, but I don't actually know anything about you, not really. Rachel gave me the highlight reel, but that's not the same." Victoria tensed. "What do you want to know?" "I don't know. Something real. What do you do when you're not running an empire?" She paused. When was the last time someone had asked her that? "I read a lot. History, mostly. Biographies." "Yeah, anyone interesting?" "Right now, Cleopatra. There's this new B book that argues she was more politician than seductress." "That tracks. The seductress thing always seemed like propaganda." "Exactly." Victoria felt herself leaning forward slightly. "Everyone focuses on the romances, but she spoke 9 languages. She negotiated treaties. She rebuilt Egypt's economy from nothing." "Sounds like someone else I know." Victoria's cheeks warmed. "I haven't rebuilt any economies." "Give it time." They talked for another hour. About books, about Chicago versus the suburbs, about the best pizza in a 50-mile radius. Ethan had opinions on deep dish that made Victoria laugh again. Twice. And somewhere in the middle of a debate about whether pineapple belonged on pizza, she realized she'd forgotten to monitor her speech. The words were still catching, still breaking in places. But Ethan wasn't reacting to it. wasn't making her feel like each stutter was a flaw to overlook. He was just listening. I should probably get going, Ethan said eventually, glancing at his phone. I told my sister I'd be back by 5, and it's already 4:30. Victoria checked her own phone, startled. 2 hours had passed without her noticing. Yeah, I should go too. They stood, gathered their things, walked toward the door together. Outside, the afternoon had grown colder. The sun was starting to dip, casting long shadows across the parking lot. Ethan stopped by a well-worn Honda Civic, keys in hand. This was really nice, Victoria. I mean it. It was. She clutched her phone, unsure what came next. Dating protocols had never been her strength. Would it be okay if I called you sometime? Maybe we could do this again? Her heart kicked against her ribs. I'd like that. Yeah? Yeah, what? Ethan smiled, wide, genuine, the kind of smile that made the cold feel less sharp. Okay, good. I'll text you. Okay. He climbed into his car, waved once through the window, and pulled out of the parking lot. Victoria stood there for a moment longer, watching his taillights disappear down the road. Her phone buzzed. Rachel. Well? Rachel. Don't leave me hanging, Hale. How did it go? Rachel. If you don't answer in 30 seconds, I'm calling you. Victoria smiled despite herself. Victoria. It went well. Rachel. Well? That's all I get? Victoria. He's nice. Rachel. Victoria Hale. If you don't give me details, Victoria. I'll call you later. She pocketed her phone, walked back to her Tesla, and sat in the driver's seat. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she wasn't thinking about work. Wasn't thinking about the next deal, the next meeting, the next carefully constructed performance. She was thinking about a man who designed logos for bakeries, who cared about ice cream before dinner, and who'd looked at her like she was a person, not a portfolio. Her phone buzzed again. Ethan. Hey, just wanted to say thanks for today. I had a really good time. Victoria stared at the message, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Victoria. Me too. Ethan. Also, Rachel wasn't kidding. You are kind of intimidating. Victoria. Sorry. Ethan. Don't be. I like it. She smiled. Actually smiled, alone in her car in an empty parking lot. Victoria. Good. Ethan. Talk soon? Victoria. Soon. She set her phone down, started the car, and pulled out onto the road. Behind her, the coffee shop lights glowed warm against the gathering dusk. Ahead of her, the highway stretched long and uncertain. And for once, Victoria didn't mind not knowing exactly where she was going. 3 days later, Victoria was sitting in a conference room on the 42nd floor of the Mercantile Exchange Building, pretending to pay attention to a presentation about emerging markets in Southeast Asia, when her phone lit up on the table beside her notepad. Ethan. Random question. Do you like mini golf? She stared at the message, aware that 6 pairs of eyes were currently watching a PowerPoint slide about projected GDP growth in Vietnam. Victoria. I've never played. Ethan. Perfect. Oliver's been begging me to take him this weekend. Want to come? Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. A second date, if that's what this was, with a 7-year-old present was not what she'd expected. Victoria. Are you sure? I don't want to intrude on your time with him. Ethan. You're not intruding. He's actually been asking about you. Victoria. He knows about me? Ethan. I may have mentioned I had coffee with a friend. He has questions, mostly about whether you're nice and if you like dinosaurs. Victoria. What did you tell him? Ethan. That you're very nice and I'd have to ask about the dinosaurs. Victoria felt something unfamiliar move through her chest. She typed back quickly before she could overthink it. Victoria. I like dinosaurs fine. What time? Ethan. Saturday, 2 p.m. I'll text you the address. Victoria. Okay. Ethan. Fair warning. Oliver takes mini golf very seriously. We're talking scorecards, official rules, victory dances. Victoria. Noted. She set her phone down and looked up to find Marcus Chen, her CFO, watching her with raised eyebrows from across the table. He'd paused mid-sentence about foreign exchange rates. Sorry, Victoria said. Continue. Marcus exchanged a glance with their lead analyst, Jennifer, who was clearly trying not to smirk. As I was saying, the currency fluctuations in the region present both opportunities and risks. Victoria forced herself to focus, taking notes she'd probably never look at again, while her mind kept drifting to mini golf and a 7-year-old who apparently had questions about dinosaurs. The meeting dragged on for another 90 minutes. By the time everyone filed out, Victoria had 3 pages of notes and absolutely no memory of what half of them meant. Marcus lingered, closing the conference room door behind the others. "So," he said, settling into the chair across from her, "you're smiling at your phone during presentations now. That's new." "I wasn't smiling." "You were definitely smiling." Marcus had worked with her for 6 years. He knew her too well. "Does this have anything to do with why you've been leaving the office at reasonable hours this week?" "I left at 7 yesterday." Exactly. Reasonable. For you, that's practically truancy." He leaned back, arms crossed. "Who is he?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Victoria, I've watched you negotiate billion-dollar deals without blinking. You're a terrible liar when it comes to personal stuff." She sighed, closing her laptop. "It's not a big deal. Rachel set me up on a blind date. We got coffee. That's it." And he seems nice." "You're blushing." "I am not." She caught sight of her reflection in the window. Her cheeks were definitely pink. "This conversation is over." Marcus grinned. "When do I get to meet him?" "Never. You're terrifying." "I'm delightful." "You made our last acquisition target cry during negotiations." "He was trying to hide a patent infringement. I was being thorough." Marcus stood, gathering his papers. "But seriously, Vic, if this guy makes you smile at your phone during my presentations, he must be doing something right. Don't overthink it." "I always overthink everything." "I know. That's why I'm telling you not to." After he left, Victoria sat alone in the empty conference room, looking out at the Chicago skyline. 42 floors up, the city stretched out in all directions, steel and glass and ambition as far as she could see. Somewhere out there, Ethan was probably picking up his son from school, helping with homework, making dinner, living a life that looked nothing like hers. And she was about to step into it. Her phone buzzed again. "Rachel, Marcus just texted me. You're going on a second date?" Victoria. "How does Marcus have your number?" Rachel. "We had lunch last month. Focus." "Second date. With the kid this time?" Victoria. "Mini golf." Rachel. "That's adorable. What are you going to wear?" Victoria. "I haven't thought about it." Rachel. "Liar. You've already planned 3 outfits." She had actually, and rejected all of them. Victoria. "I have to go. I have a meeting." Rachel. "You're in the office at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday. You don't have a meeting." Victoria. "Goodbye, Rachel." Rachel. "Wear jeans and that green sweater, the casual one. And for the love of everything, do not talk about work." Victoria pocketed her phone and headed back to her office, where a stack of contracts waited for her signature, and her assistant had left a note about tomorrow's breakfast meeting with a potential investor from Singapore. She should review the contracts, should prep for the meeting, should do any number of things that actually mattered to the carefully constructed life she'd built. Instead, she pulled up Google and typed, "What do you wear to mini golf?" Saturday arrived cold and bright. Victoria stood in front of her closet for 20 minutes before finally settling on dark jeans, the green sweater Rachel had suggested, and boots that were practical but still looked intentional. She'd blown out her hair, then felt ridiculous and pulled it into a ponytail, then took the ponytail out, then put it back up. At 1:45 p.m., she was sitting in her car outside Adventure Zone Mini Golf and Arcade, watching families stream in and out of the bright purple building with its giant cartoon dinosaur mascot on the roof. This was a mistake. She didn't know how to talk to children, didn't know the first thing about mini golf, didn't know why she'd thought showing up to a second date with a man's 7-year-old son was something she could handle. Her phone rang. Ethan. "Hey," she answered, trying to sound casual. "Hey yourself. Are you here yet? Oliver just spotted your car. Apparently Teslas are very exciting when you're 7. Victoria looked toward the entrance and saw Ethan standing outside, phone to his ear, waving. Beside him, a small boy in a dinosaur sweatshirt was literally bouncing on his toes. "Yeah," she said, "I'm here." "Come on in, we'll get you set up with a club." She took a breath, grabbed her purse, and got out of the car. Oliver reached her first, skidding to a stop a few feet away with the kind of energy that seemed to vibrate off him in waves. "Are you Victoria?" he asked, eyes wide. "I am. Dad said you're really smart and you work with money and you've never played mini golf before. Is that true?" "Oliver," Ethan said, catching up to them, "maybe let her say hi first." But Victoria found herself smiling. "It's true, all of it. That's weird. Everyone's played mini golf." Oliver looked deeply concerned by this. "It's like a basic thing. I guess I missed that basic thing." "Well, don't worry, I'm really good. I can teach you." He said it with the absolute confidence of someone who'd lived 7 years and knew everything worth knowing. "But first, do you like dinosaurs? Dad said he didn't know." "I think they're pretty interesting." "What's your favorite?" Victoria glanced at Ethan, who was clearly trying not to laugh. "Maybe a brachiosaurus?" Oliver's face lit up. "That's a solid choice. Long neck, herbivore, very chill. Mine's a velociraptor because they hunt in packs and they're smart. Smarter than people think." "Good to know." "Okay, you passed. Let's go play." He grabbed her hand, just reached out and took it like it was the most natural thing in the world, and started pulling her toward the entrance. Victoria looked back at Ethan, slightly panicked. He just grinned and followed. Inside, Adventure Zone was exactly as chaotic as she'd expected. Bright lights, arcade sounds, the smell of popcorn and carpet cleaner. Kids everywhere, running between obstacles, shouting about holes-in-one and tournament rules they'd clearly made up. Oliver led them to the counter where a teenager with blue hair handed them scorecards and neon golf balls. "I want orange," Oliver announced. "You always want orange," Ethan said, "because orange is the best color. It's scientifically proven." "I don't think that's how science works, buddy." "It is in my science." Oliver looked at Victoria. "What color do you want?" She looked at the options: pink, green, yellow, blue. "Green? Good choice. Green is nature, very calm." Oliver grabbed his orange ball and headed toward the first course. "Okay, so the rules are simple. You hit the ball, try to get it in the hole, count your strokes. Lowest score wins. Got it?" "Got it," Victoria said, though she was already lost. Ethan leaned closer, voice low. "You doing okay?" "I think so." "He's a lot. You can tell me if it's too much." "No, it's fine." And it was. Overwhelming, yes, but not bad. The first hole was dinosaur-themed, because of course it was, with a T-Rex statue looming over the green and a small volcano that occasionally puffed fake smoke. Oliver went first, lining up his shot with the seriousness of a professional golfer. He hit the ball, watched it curve around the volcano, bounce off the T-Rex's foot, and roll neatly into the hole. "Hole in one!" He threw his arms up in victory. "Beat that!" Ethan went next, taking 2 strokes to sink his ball. Respectable, but clearly not competitive with his son's opening move. Then it was Victoria's turn. She stepped up to the tee, putter in hand, and realized she had no idea what she was doing. The club felt awkward. The ball looked too small. The hole looked impossibly far away. "Just hit it," Oliver encouraged. "You got this." She swung. The ball rolled about 3 feet and stopped. "Okay, that's a start," Oliver said diplomatically. "Try again." More power this time. She tried again. The ball hopped over a small ridge, rolled backward, and ended up further from the hole than where it started. "Interesting strategy," Ethan said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. It took her 6 strokes to finally sink the ball. 6 strokes on a course Oliver had finished in 1. "That's okay," Oliver said, patting her arm. "You'll get better. Probably." They moved through the course, 18 holes of dinosaurs, pirates, castles, and underwater scenes. Oliver narrated everything, offering tips that ranged from genuinely helpful to completely nonsensical. Ethan kept score, making editorial comments that made Victoria laugh more than she'd expected. By hole 7, she'd relaxed enough to actually enjoy herself. By hole 12, she'd stopped worrying about her score entirely and started just watching Oliver, who approached each hole like it was the championship round of a tournament. "You know what I like about mini golf?" Oliver said, lining up his shot at hole 14. "It's fair. Like, it doesn't matter if you're big or small or whatever. The course is the same for everyone. You just got to figure out the angles." He hit his ball. It curved perfectly around a pirate ship and dropped into the hole. That's a good point, Victoria said. I have lots of good points. Dad says I'm very wise. I said you ask a lot of questions, Ethan corrected. Wisdom is still pending. Same thing. At hole 16, Oliver turned to Victoria with sudden seriousness. Can I ask you something? Sure. Are you Dad's girlfriend? Victoria froze. Ethan dropped his putter. Oliver, Ethan said quickly. That's not... We talked about this. You said I could ask her questions. I meant about dinosaurs. Oliver looked between them, confused. But I want to know. Victoria's heart was pounding. She looked at Ethan, who looked mortified, then back at Oliver, who was just waiting for an answer like he'd asked about the weather. We're friends, Victoria said carefully. Your dad and I are getting to know each other. So, maybe girlfriend later? Oliver. Ethan's voice had an edge of panic now. What? I'm just asking. You never bring friends to mini-golf. Only me. Oliver crossed his arms. I think she's nice. I wouldn't mind if she was your girlfriend. Victoria didn't know whether to laugh or run to her car. Ethan looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. Buddy, can we maybe finish the game and talk about this later? Fine. Oliver picked up his putter. But I'm just saying, she's way better than that lady from your work you had coffee with last year. She didn't even like Star Wars. How do you remember that? I remember everything. Oliver lined up his shot. Also, Victoria has a cool car, that matters. They finished the last 2 holes in relative silence, though Oliver kept shooting glances at Victoria like he was trying to figure something out. When they returned their clubs, Ethan pulled her aside while Oliver ran ahead to look at the arcade games. I'm so sorry, he said. I didn't think I should have known he'd... It's okay. It's not okay. That was way too much for a second date. Ethan. She waited until he looked at her. It's really okay. He's 7. 7-year-olds ask questions. Yeah, but... And for what it's worth, I think you're nice too. That stopped him. His expression shifted from panic to something softer, something that made Victoria's chest feel tight. Yeah? Yeah. Oliver came sprinting back. Can we get pizza, please? I'm starving and I played really good and I think I deserve pizza. You think you deserve pizza? Ethan asked. I know I deserve pizza. Ethan looked at Victoria. Do you want to... you don't have to, but if you wanted to grab food... She should say no, should make an excuse, keep some distance, not get pulled deeper into this world that felt so different from her own. Pizza sounds good, she heard herself say. Oliver cheered. They ended up at a place called Rocco's 2 blocks away, crammed into a red vinyl booth with paper menus and a jukebox in the corner playing Motown. Oliver ordered pepperoni, extra cheese, and spent the wait time building a tower out of sugar packets while explaining his theory about which dinosaurs could survive in modern Chicago. So basically, the small ones could adapt, he said, balancing another packet. Like the velociraptors I mentioned. They're smart. They work in teams. They'd figure it out. But the big ones? No way. A T-Rex in downtown traffic? Disaster. What about a Brachiosaurus? Victoria asked. Oliver considered this seriously. Maybe in the suburbs, lots of trees, but they'd probably get hit by a train eventually. Dark turn, Ethan muttered. I'm being realistic, Dad. The pizza arrived, and Oliver demolished 2 slices before coming up for air. Ethan ate slower, watching his son with the kind of quiet attention Victoria recognized. The way you looked at something you'd built, something that surprised you every day. So, Oliver said, wiping cheese off his chin with a napkin. Victoria, what's your job exactly? Dad said something about money, but he wasn't very clear. Oliver, no, it's okay. Victoria set down her slice. I help companies grow. I invest money in businesses that I think will do well. And if they do well, everyone benefits. Do you invest in pizza places? Sometimes. If it's a really good pizza place. Is this a good pizza place? She looked around. At the scuffed floors, the faded photos of Chicago sports teams on the walls, the owner behind the counter who'd greeted Ethan by name. I think so. Would you invest in it? I'd have to see their numbers first, but maybe. Oliver nodded, satisfied. That's fair. Numbers are important. I'm very good at math. He gets 100% on most of his tests, Ethan added. Most? Oliver protested. I got 198%, and that was because Mrs. Patterson marked my 7 weird. Your 7 was backward. It was artistic. Victoria smiled, watching them. There was something easy about the way they moved around each other, a rhythm that came from years of practice. Ethan knew when to push back and when to let things go. Oliver knew exactly how far he could take a joke before his dad pulled rank. It was nothing like her childhood, nothing like the silent dinners with her father, the etiquette lessons, the constant pressure to perform perfectly in every situation. This was messy, loud, real. Hey, Oliver, Ethan said. Why don't you go pick something on the jukebox? I'll give you $1. Oliver's eyes went wide. Any song? Any song that's not the Macarena. You're no fun. But Oliver grabbed the dollar and scrambled out of the booth, heading for the jukebox with purpose. Ethan turned to Victoria. You sure you're okay? I know this is a lot. My kid, the questions, the dinosaur lectures. I like the dinosaur lectures. You're just saying that. I'm not. She meant it. He's smart, and he's comfortable with you. That's really nice to see. Ethan looked down at his pizza. It hasn't always been easy. His mom left when he was 3, just decided one day that being a parent wasn't what she wanted anymore. Signed over custody, moved to Seattle, sends a card on his birthday sometimes. Maybe. That's awful. Yeah, it was. Still is some days. Oliver asks about her sometimes. I try to be honest without making her the villain, but he shrugged. It's complicated. He seems like he's doing okay. He is. Mostly. He's in speech therapy, actually. Has been for 2 years. Victoria's hand stilled halfway to her water glass. Speech therapy? Yeah, he has a stutter. Or he did. It's gotten a lot better, but when he's tired or stressed, it comes back. You might have noticed he talks really fast sometimes. That's one of his coping mechanisms. If he keeps moving, the words don't get stuck. Her throat felt tight. I didn't notice. That's because he's good at hiding it. Took me a year to convince him that therapy wasn't punishment. It was just tools. Ways to make things easier. Ethan looked toward the jukebox, where Oliver was deliberating between options with the gravity of a Supreme Court decision. He used to get so frustrated he'd cry. Couldn't get the words out. Couldn't make people understand. Kids at school would make fun of him. What did you do? Talked to the teacher, talked to the parents. Made it very clear that if anyone gave my kid a hard time about the way he spoke, we were going to have problems. His voice had gone quiet, controlled. And then I took him to therapy 3 times a week and sat in the waiting room doing freelance work on my laptop while he learned how to breathe through the blocks. Victoria couldn't speak, couldn't think of a single thing to say that wouldn't give away too much. Ethan seemed to notice her silence. Sorry, I'm oversharing. Rachel warned me I do that. No, She forced the words out. That must have been hard for both of you. It was, but he's tough. Tougher than me, probably. Across the restaurant, Oliver fed $1 into the jukebox and punched in his selection. A moment later, Don't Stop Believin' started playing through the speakers. Classic choice, Ethan said. Oliver came back to the booth, sliding in beside his dad. I picked a good one, right? You did, buddy. They finished their pizza while Journey played and Oliver resumed his sugar packet tower construction. When the check came, Ethan reached for it, but Victoria was faster. I've got it, she said. You don't have to. I want to. Oliver looked between them. Are you guys going to fight about who pays? Because Dad always fights about that with Grandma, and it takes forever. We're not fighting, Ethan said. Then let her pay. She's rich. Oliver! What? She has a Tesla. That's rich. Victoria laughed despite herself. He's not wrong. See? Oliver looked triumphant. She paid the check, $18 and change, the cheapest meal she'd had in months, and they walked out into the late afternoon sun. Well, Ethan said, hands in his pockets, this was chaotic? Victoria offered. I was going to say fun, but chaotic works too. Oliver tugged on Ethan's sleeve. Can Victoria come over sometime? I want to show her my dinosaur collection. Buddy, I don't think... I'd like that, Victoria said, surprising herself. Oliver's face lit up. Really? Really? Yes. Okay, I have like 40 dinosaurs and a whole book about the Mesozoic era and a poster that shows all the different periods. You're going to love it. I'm sure I will. They walked to the parking lot together. Oliver ran ahead, already talking about which dinosaurs he'd show her first, while Ethan fell into step beside Victoria. You don't have to come over, he said quietly. I know he put you on the spot. I meant it. I'd like to see the collection. It's extensive and very specifically organized. He'll quiz you. I'll study. Ethan smiled, and something in Victoria's chest shifted again. You're really good with him. Not everyone is. He's easy to be good with. You'd be surprised. Some people... He stopped himself. Never mind. Not important. But Victoria understood what he meant. Some people saw Oliver's energy, his questions, his need for attention, and decided it was too much. Too complicated. Not worth the effort. She'd spent her whole life being too much in different ways. She got it. They reached her car and Oliver immediately pressed his face against the window, peering inside like it was a spaceship. This is so cool, he breathed. Does it drive itself? It can, Victoria said. No way. Way. Dad, we need one of these. We definitely don't need one of these. We definitely do. Ethan pulled Oliver back from the car. Say thank you to Victoria for playing mini golf with us. Thank you for playing mini golf with us. Oliver threw his arms around her waist in a quick, fierce hug that Victoria wasn't prepared for. You're not bad for a beginner, and I like you. He let go before she could respond and ran back to Ethan's Honda, already talking about pizza rankings and jukebox strategies. Ethan lingered. Thank you. For today. For putting up with my kids' interrogation techniques. I had fun. Even though you lost by 47 strokes? Even though... He stepped closer, and for a second Victoria thought he might kiss her. Her heart kicked up, uncertain whether she wanted him to or if that would be too much too fast. But he just smiled, warm and genuine, and said, Talk soon? Soon, she agreed. She watched them drive away, Ethan's beat-up Honda with Oliver visible in the back seat, gesturing wildly about something, and then she sat in her Tesla in the cooling afternoon light, hands on the steering wheel, trying to process what had just happened. She'd spent 3 hours playing mini golf with a 7-year-old who asked too many questions and a single father who'd somehow made her feel like she fit into their weird little orbit. And the strangest part was, she wanted to do it again. Her phone buzzed. Ethan, Oliver wants me to tell you that he forgot to ask what your second favorite dinosaur is. Apparently, this is critical information. Victoria smiled, typing back. Victoria. Ankylosaurus, heavily armored, doesn't take any nonsense. Ethan. He says that's an excellent choice, and he approves. Victoria. Good to know I passed the test. Ethan. You passed a lot more than that. She stared at the message for a long moment, then pocketed her phone and drove home, that small sentence replaying in her head the entire way. The dinosaur collection was, as promised, extensive. Victoria stood in Oliver's bedroom 2 weeks later, surrounded by models that ranged from tiny plastic figures to an almost life-sized velociraptor that took up half the floor space. The walls were covered in posters, geological timelines, species charts, a huge map showing where different fossils had been discovered. Books were stacked on every available surface, spines cracked from repeated reading. This one, Oliver said, holding up a particularly detailed triceratops, is my third favorite. The horns are accurate to scale, which most models get wrong. And this one, he grabbed a pteranodon from his desk, isn't technically a dinosaur because it's a pterosaur, but Dad let me keep it in the collection anyway because it's cool. Very cool, Victoria agreed, and she meant it. She'd been here for 40 minutes. The plan had been quick. Drop by, see the collection, leave before it got awkward. But Oliver had other ideas, and Ethan seemed content to let his son run the show, which meant Victoria was now getting a comprehensive education in Mesozoic fauna, while Ethan leaned against the doorframe, watching them with quiet amusement. Okay, Oliver said, setting down the pteranodon. Pop quiz. What's the difference between the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous periods? Victoria searched her memory for the research she'd done the night before, because, of course, she'd researched. She couldn't show up unprepared. The Triassic was first, when dinosaurs were just starting to evolve. The Jurassic was the middle period, when they really diversified. And the Cretaceous was last, ending with the asteroid impact. Oliver's eyes went wide. Yes, exactly. See, Dad? I told you she'd study. You did tell me that, Ethan said. She's smart. I like her. You've mentioned that too. Oliver turned back to Victoria, holding up two small models. Okay, harder question. Allosaurus or Carnotaurus? For what? For which one's better? That's subjective, buddy, Ethan interjected. It's not subjective, it's science. Oliver looked at Victoria expectantly. She studied both models. Allosaurus, better fossil record, more successful as a species. Wrong! Carnotaurus has horns and tiny arms, which makes it way more interesting. I thought you wanted a scientific answer. I wanted the right answer, which is Carnotaurus. Ethan pushed off the doorframe. All right, Professor. Victoria's been here almost an hour. Maybe give her a break before the advanced exam. But I haven't shown her the Mesozoic era book yet. You can show her next time. Oliver looked at Victoria. Is there going to be a next time? She felt Ethan's eyes on her, but kept her focus on Oliver. If you want there to be. I definitely want there to be. You're one of the only adults who actually listens when I talk about dinosaurs. Most people just pretend. Oliver, Ethan started. It's true. Grandma literally falls asleep, and Uncle Mike just says, "That's nice" to everything. Oliver crossed his arms. Victoria asks real questions. That's different. Something in Victoria's chest tightened. She knew what it felt like to have adults tune you out, dismiss what mattered to you because it didn't fit their idea of important. I like learning about dinosaurs, she said simply. Oliver beamed. See? She gets it. They migrated downstairs where Ethan had promised snacks, and Oliver had insisted on showing Victoria his current art project, a detailed drawing of a Brachiosaurus that was genuinely impressive for a 7-year-old. I'm entering it in the school art show, Oliver explained, spreading the paper out on the kitchen table. First prize is a $50 gift card to the bookstore. You'd spend $50 on books? Victoria asked. Dinosaur books, Oliver corrected. There's a difference. Ethan handed her a glass of water and set out a plate of apple slices and peanut butter. He's already picked out which ones he wants. I've seen the list. It's comprehensive. I'm being strategic, Oliver said through a mouthful of apple. If I win, I get 5 books. If I lose, I get 0 books. Math. That is math, Victoria agreed. She watched Ethan move around the kitchen, comfortable, efficient, the kind of domestic choreography that came from years of single parenting. He knew where everything was, anticipated what Oliver needed before he asked, maintained order in the gentle chaos of a household built for 2. It was nothing like her penthouse downtown. No housekeeper coming twice a week, no meal service, no assistant managing the details she didn't have time for. This was just life. Messy and immediate and real. So, Oliver said, looking up from his drawing, are you Dad's girlfriend yet? Oliver! Ethan nearly dropped the water pitcher. What? It's been 2 weeks. I thought grown-ups moved faster than this. Where did you get that idea? TV. TV is not real life. Oliver shrugged. Seems real. Victoria felt heat creeping up her neck. They hadn't defined anything, hadn't had the conversation. They'd been texting daily, had grabbed coffee twice more, and she'd joined them for dinner at a Thai place Oliver loved. But the word girlfriend hadn't come up outside of Oliver's persistent questioning. We're still figuring things out, Ethan said, shooting Victoria an apologetic look. That's what adults say when they're scared to decide, Oliver observed. You're 7. You shouldn't be this perceptive. I'm advanced for my age. Mrs. Patterson said so. Ethan sighed, looking at Victoria. I'm sorry. He's been like this all week. It's okay, Victoria said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. He's not wrong. Adults do say that. Oliver looked vindicated. See? But, Victoria continued, figuring things out isn't always about being scared. Sometimes it's about making sure you get it right. Oliver considered this. That's fair. Dad always says measure twice, cut once. Exactly. Okay. But for the record, I think you should be his girlfriend. You make him smile more. And you have good taste in dinosaurs. Ethan rubbed his face. I'm going to go die of embarrassment in the other room. You two keep talking. But he didn't leave, just leaned against the counter, looking like he wanted the floor to swallow him. Oliver went back to his drawing, adding details to the Brachiosaurus's scales with intense concentration. Victoria sat beside him, watching the careful way he held the pencil, the small tongue of concentration that poked out when he focused. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly. "Sure." "Your dad mentioned you do speech therapy." Oliver's hand paused for just a second before continuing. "Yeah, Tuesdays and Thursdays." "Do you like it?" He shrugged. "It's okay. Miss Chen is nice. She has these breathing exercises that help when words get stuck." "Does that happen a lot? The getting stuck?" "Not as much as it used to." Oliver set down his pencil, looking at her directly. "It's worse when I'm nervous or really tired, or when I have to talk in front of the class. That's the hardest." Victoria's throat felt tight. "What do you do when that happens?" "Miss Chen taught me to stop, take a breath, and try again. And if it's really bad, I can just write it down instead. Mrs. Patterson lets me do that sometimes." He picked up his pencil again. "Some kids used to make fun of me. Before therapy, they'd try to copy how I talk or finish my sentences. That must have been hard." "It was really hard. I cried a lot. But Dad talked to the school, and now those kids mostly leave me alone. And I got better at the exercises, so it doesn't happen as much." Oliver glanced toward Ethan, who was pretending to look at his phone but clearly listening. "Dad says everybody has something they're working on. Mine's just more obvious." "Your dad's right. He usually is. Don't tell him I said that." Victoria smiled despite the emotion building in her chest. "Your secret's safe." Oliver went back to drawing. After a moment, without looking up, he said, "You talk different sometimes, too." Victoria's heart stopped. "What?" "Like, some words take you a second. I noticed at mini golf. And just now when you said figuring things out, the F sound got stuck a little." He said it matter-of-factly, the way he'd stated facts about dinosaurs. "It's okay. I do that with F sounds too sometimes." She couldn't breathe, couldn't think of what to say. Nobody had ever just called it out like that, not with such casual acceptance. Ethan crossed the room, sitting down across from them. "Oliver, that's not really—" "It's okay," Victoria said, voice barely above a whisper. "He's right." Oliver looked up from his drawing. "So you do speech therapy too?" "I used to, when I was younger." "Did it help?" "Yeah, most of the time." "Cool." Oliver picked up a green-colored pencil. "Miss Chen says it's like training your brain to take a different path when the main road is blocked, like a detour." "That's a good way to think about it. Do you still get nervous when you have to talk in front of people?" Victoria glanced at Ethan, who was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Sometimes. Yeah. Me too. Dad says that's normal." "It is normal." "Okay." Oliver seemed satisfied with this, returning his full attention to the Brachiosaurus. "You can come to my speech therapy graduation if you want. It's in like 3 months. We get certificates and everything." "Oliver," Ethan said gently, "that might be a little, "I'd like that," Victoria interrupted. "If it's okay with your dad." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. "Yeah, it's okay with me." Oliver grinned. "Cool. Fair warning, though, I have to give a speech, like an actual speech in front of everyone. I'm already nervous about it." "You'll do great," Victoria said. "How do you know?" "Because you're brave enough to try. That's the hard part." Oliver thought about this, then nodded. "Yeah, I guess you're right." They sat in comfortable silence while Oliver finished his drawing. Ethan made more coffee, offered Victoria a cup that she accepted. Outside, the afternoon was fading into early evening, the light through the kitchen window turning golden. This was the 4th time she'd seen them in 2 weeks. The 4th time she'd stepped into their world and found it easier than it should have been to stay. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, probably with questions about the Singapore deal. She ignored it. "I should probably get going," she said, though she didn't particularly want to. "Already?" Oliver looked genuinely disappointed. "But I didn't show you the fossil kit yet." "Buddy, Victoria has work—" "Actually," Victoria said, "I'd like to see the fossil kit." Oliver's face lit up. "Really?" "Really?" He jumped up from the table, already running toward his room. "It's got real fossils. Well, replicas, but really good replicas. After he disappeared upstairs, Ethan leaned back in his chair. You don't have to encourage him. He'll keep you here all night if you let him. I don't mind. You're going to regret saying that when he breaks out the documentary about plate tectonics. I like documentaries. Ethan smiled, but there was something serious behind it. Can I ask you something? Sure. What Oliver said about the speech thing. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but... He paused. Is that something you deal with? Victoria's first instinct was to deflect, to minimize, to do what she'd always done. But sitting in Ethan's kitchen, in this house that felt more like home than her penthouse ever had, the deflection stuck in her throat. Yeah, she said quietly. I have a stutter. Had one my whole life. It's manageable now, mostly, but it's still there. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Most people don't. That's kind of the point. I learned how to hide it. Why? The question caught her off guard. What do you mean, why? I mean, why hide it? You built a company. You clearly know what you're doing. Why does it matter if sometimes words take a second? Victoria looked down at her coffee. In my world, everything's about confidence, projecting control. The second people see a weakness, they use it. I learned that early. That sounds exhausting. It is. She'd never admitted that out loud before. But it's what I know. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Oliver used to hide it too. Would go completely silent rather than risk stuttering in front of people. Broke my heart watching him shut down like that. What changed? Therapy helped, but honestly, I think he just got tired of pretending. Decided it took more energy to hide than to just be himself. Ethan looked toward the stairs where Oliver's footsteps were thundering around. He still has hard days, still gets frustrated, but he's not ashamed anymore. That's the part that matters. You're a good dad. I'm trying. Most days I have no idea what I'm doing. You're doing better than you think. Oliver reappeared with a box labeled Ultimate Fossil Discovery Kit in large enthusiastic letters. Okay, so this is basically archaeology but smaller. You dig through this block and find fossils, and then you have to identify them. He launched into an explanation that involved brushes, careful excavation techniques, and a lot of very specific terminology. Victoria listened, asking questions when appropriate, while Ethan made dinner, pasta, simple but from scratch, sauce simmering on the stove. At some point, Oliver insisted she stay for dinner. Ethan didn't object. Victoria texted Marcus that she was taking the evening off and ignored his response of shocked emojis. They ate at the kitchen table, Oliver narrating between bites about his upcoming field trip to the Natural History Museum. The conversation was easy, familiar in a way that shouldn't have been possible after only 2 weeks. Can Victoria come to the museum too? Oliver asked suddenly. Buddy, that's a school trip, parents only. You're coming. I'm your parent. So bring Victoria. She's basically... Oliver stopped himself, glancing between them. I mean, she could come as your friend. Friends can come, right? I don't think that's how field trips work. You should check, because Victoria would actually appreciate the museum, not like Tommy's mom who just plays on her phone the whole time. I'll check, Ethan said, clearly not planning to check. But later, after dinner, when Oliver was upstairs getting ready for bed, and Victoria was helping Ethan clean up the kitchen, he said, He really likes you. I really like him. Yeah? Ethan dried a plate, set it in the cabinet. Because I need to know if this is... Oliver's already attached. If you're not sure about this, about us, I need to know now before he gets more invested. Victoria set down the dish she was washing. I'm sure. You say that, but... Ethan. She turned to face him. I'm sure. I don't know what that means exactly or where this goes, but I'm sure I want to find out. He looked at her for a long moment, soap suds dripping from the plate in his hand. Then he set it down, dried his hands on a towel, and closed the distance between them. Can I kiss you? He asked. Her heart was pounding. Yeah. He kissed her carefully, like he was afraid she might break. Like this moment mattered, and he wanted to get it right. When they pulled apart, Victoria was smiling despite herself. For the record, Ethan said quietly, I'm sure too. Good. Dad! Oliver's voice drifted down from upstairs. I can't find my dinosaur pajamas. They're in the dryer, Ethan called back. then looked at Victoria with amused exasperation. I should go. I'll finish the dishes. You don't have to. I want to. He kissed her once more, quick and sweet, then headed upstairs. Victoria stood in the kitchen alone, hands back in the warm, soapy water, listening to Ethan and Oliver's voices filtering down from the second floor, something about pajamas and brushing teeth and whether velociraptors would have been good pets. Her phone buzzed again. Multiple messages, probably. Work that needed attention, deals that needed closing, an empire that required constant maintenance. She ignored all of it and finished the dishes. The next 3 weeks fell into a pattern. Victoria would leave work at reasonable hours. Marcus had stopped commenting, though his eyebrows said plenty, and drive to Ethan's house. Sometimes they'd have dinner, sometimes just sit in the living room while Oliver did homework and explained the finer points of whatever he was learning that week. She met Ethan's sister, Claire, who showed up one Saturday with groceries and immediately interrogated Victoria like she was applying for a loan. "So you're the mysterious billionaire my brother won't shut up about," Claire had said, setting bags on the counter with a look that could cut glass. "I don't think I'm that mysterious," Victoria had replied. "You run a private equity firm, drive a Tesla, and are somehow interested in my brother who hasn't updated his wardrobe since 2019. That's plenty mysterious." But by the end of that afternoon, Claire had softened, mostly because Victoria had spent 20 minutes talking her through a work problem without being condescending, and because Oliver had vouched for her with the kind of 7-year-old certainty that apparently carried weight. "She's good people," Claire told Ethan later, while Victoria pretended not to hear from the living room. "Weird that she wants to date you, but good people." Thanks for the vote of confidence." "I'm serious. Don't screw this up." "I'm trying not to." Victoria also met some of Oliver's friends when she accompanied them to a birthday party at a trampoline park, which was basically chaos in foam pit form. She watched Ethan navigate the social politics of other parents with the same careful attention he gave everything else, saw how the other kids gravitated toward Oliver despite or maybe because of his endless dinosaur facts. One kid, smaller than the others, had started to stutter while asking about cake. Oliver had waited patiently, not finishing the sentence, not looking uncomfortable. Just waiting. When the kid finally got the words out, Oliver had grinned and said, "Chocolate's the best. Good choice." Victoria had felt something crack open in her chest watching that. But things weren't perfect, couldn't be perfect. There was the conference call she'd taken during dinner one night, stepping outside despite Ethan's understanding nod. Missing Oliver's story about his day because a deal in Frankfurt was falling apart. She'd come back to find them cleaning up without her, and the apology had stuck in her throat. There was the evening she'd been too exhausted to mask the stutter, words fracturing more than usual, and even though Ethan and Oliver didn't care, she'd felt the old shame creeping back in. There was the moment when Oliver had asked, casually, "Are you going to live with us?" And Victoria had frozen because she hadn't thought that far ahead, hadn't let herself imagine what this could become. "We're not there yet, buddy," Ethan had said gently. "But maybe someday? Maybe someday." And Victoria had sat there thinking about her penthouse. 43rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, every surface carefully curated, and wondered what it would be like to trade it for this house, with its scuffed floors and dinosaur posters, an unmistakable feeling of home. Then April arrived, and with it, a phone call that changed everything. Victoria was in her office, reviewing quarterly reports, when her assistant buzzed through. "You have a call on line 2. She says it's personal." "Who is it?" "She didn't give a name, just said you'd want to take it." Victoria frowned but picked up. "This is Victoria Hale." "Hi, I don't know if you remember me, but..." The woman's voice was tentative, younger than Victoria expected. "This is Sarah Brooks. I'm Oliver's mom." The room went very cold. "I remember," Victoria said carefully, even though they'd never met, never spoken, existed only in reference to each other through Ethan's careful explanations. "Right. Okay. So this is probably weird, me calling you. I got your number from... It doesn't matter. Look, I know about you and Ethan, and I need to talk to you." "About what?" "About my son." Sarah's voice cracked slightly. "I made a mistake. Leaving. I've spent 4 years trying to figure my life out, and I finally have. I'm ready now. Ready to be his mom again." And I need you to understand that before you get more involved, because this is my family, not yours. Victoria's hand tightened on the phone. Have you talked to Ethan about this? I'm going to. I wanted to talk to you first, woman to woman. Sarah paused. I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm just being honest. You're not Oliver's mother. You're not his family. And when I come back, there's not going to be room for you. Does Oliver know you're coming back? Not yet, but he will. And he'll be happy. Kids always want their real mom, no matter what anyone else tries to be. The words hit like a physical blow. Victoria forced herself to breathe evenly, to keep her voice steady. I think you should talk to Ethan. I plan to. I just wanted you to know what's coming, so you can prepare. Or leave now before it gets messier. Your choice. The line went dead. Victoria sat in her office, staring at the phone in her hand while Chicago sprawled out beneath her and the careful architecture of her life began to crumble. Victoria sat through 2 more meetings that afternoon without hearing a single word. Her brain kept replaying the phone call, Sarah's voice cutting through every rational thought she tried to construct. You're not his family, not his mother. The words had teeth, and they'd sunk in deep. By 6 p.m., she was supposed to be at Ethan's house for dinner. Oliver had requested tacos and had apparently spent the previous evening drawing a menu complete with illustrations of what he expected. Ethan had sent her a photo, crayon drawings of shells and cheese and a stick figure labeled Victoria, with a speech bubble saying, "These are good tacos." She stared at that photo now, thumb hovering over Ethan's contact. She should call, should tell him about Sarah, should be honest. Instead, she texted, "Something came up at work. Can't make dinner. Sorry." The response came fast. Ethan, everything okay? Victoria, yeah, just a deal that needs attention. Ethan, okay. Oliver will be disappointed, but he'll understand. Victoria, tell him I'm sorry. Ethan, I will. Talk tomorrow? She didn't answer that one. Marcus found her still at her desk at 8 p.m., staring at financial projections she wasn't reading. You're here late, he said from the doorway. Thought you'd broken that habit. Deal fell through, trying to salvage it. Marcus stepped into the office, closing the door behind him. What deal? Frankfurt, the manufacturing acquisition. That closed 2 days ago. I was there when you signed off on it. Victoria's hand stilled on the keyboard. Right, different deal. Vic. Marcus sat down across from her. What's going on? Nothing. I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. We've established this. He leaned back, studying her. Does this have to do with the guy, Ethan? She didn't answer. Okay, so it does. What happened? His ex called me. Oliver's mom. She's coming back. Wants to be a family again. Marcus was quiet for a moment. What did Ethan say? I haven't told him. Why not? Because... Victoria stopped, the words catching. Not from the stutter, from something else. Because she's right. I'm not his family. I'm just someone who's been around for a few weeks. That doesn't give me any claim. Does Ethan know she called? I don't know. Maybe. She said she was going to talk to him. So call him. Tell him what happened. Let him handle it. Victoria shook her head. It's not that simple. It literally is that simple. Marcus? No, listen. He leaned forward. I've known you for 6 years. In that time, I have watched you negotiate deals that would make grown men cry. I've seen you walk into rooms full of people who wanted you to fail and walk out with exactly what you came for. You don't back down from anything. He paused. Except this. This one thing. Why? She couldn't look at him. Because maybe she's right. Maybe I don't belong there. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard you say. And I once heard you suggest we invest in that cryptocurrency scheme that turned out to be run by a teenager in Nebraska. Despite everything, Victoria almost smiled. That was your idea. Irrelevant. My point is, you're scared, which is fine. Human, even. But running from it isn't going to make it better. I'm not running. You canceled dinner via text message. That's literally running. Victoria's phone buzzed. She glanced at it automatically. Ethan. Oliver wants to know if you're mad at him. Ethan. I told him no, but he's convinced he said something wrong at the birthday party last weekend. Ethan. Can you just text him real quick? Let him know you're not upset? Her throat tightened. She typed out, Victoria. Not mad, just busy. Tell him I'll see him soon. But her finger hovered over send, and instead she deleted it and wrote, Victoria, I need some space, just for a few days. Work stuff. The response took longer this time. Ethan, okay. Let me know when you're ready to talk. Marcus was watching her. What did you just do? Asked for space. From a guy you were literally planning to have dinner with 3 hours ago. It's complicated. It's fear. Marcus stood, shaking his head. Look, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but I will say this. You've spent 30 years building walls. This guy, his kid, they got past them. That's rare. Maybe even once in a lifetime rare. And you're about to throw it away because some ex-girlfriend called and rattled you. He headed for the door, then paused. Just think about what you're actually afraid of. Because I don't think it's losing him. I think it's wanting to stay. After he left, Victoria sat in her office until the cleaning crew came through, then drove home to her empty penthouse where everything was exactly as she'd left it that morning. Perfect. Controlled. Hers. And completely hollow. She didn't sleep well. Kept reaching for her phone to text Ethan, then stopping herself. Kept seeing Oliver's face when she'd promised she'd be at his speech therapy graduation. Kept hearing Sarah's voice saying, "You're not his family." By morning, she'd convinced herself that space was the right call. Smart. Protective. By noon, her resolve was cracking. By 3 p.m., Rachel showed up at her office unannounced, walked past her assistant's protests, and slammed Victoria's door hard enough that the window rattled. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Victoria looked up from her laptop. "Excuse me?" "Ethan called me. Said you asked for space. After weeks of being all in, suddenly you're bailing?" Rachel crossed her arms. "Want to tell me what happened?" "It's personal. We're friends. Personal is kind of our thing." "Rachel, his ex called you, didn't she?" Victoria's silence was answer enough. Rachel sat down heavily. "Okay, what did Sarah say?" "How do you know about Sarah?" "Ethan told me. When they first started dating, before you, he wanted to make sure I knew the full situation, that Oliver had a mom who wasn't in the picture but might come back someday." Rachel's expression softened. "What did she say to you?" Victoria repeated the conversation, watching Rachel's face cycle through surprise, anger, and something that looked like protective fury. That manipulative... Rachel stopped herself. "Okay. First of all, Sarah has no right to call you. Second, she definitely has no right to tell you how this plays out. And third," she leaned forward, "third, you're letting her win by running away." "I'm not running away. I'm being realistic." "You're being scared." "Maybe scared is realistic." Rachel studied her for a long moment. "Can I tell you something about Ethan? I don't think... When Sarah left, it destroyed him. Not because he lost her. They were already falling apart. But because she walked away from Oliver. Just decided one day that being a mom was too hard and she was done." Rachel's voice went quiet. "Ethan spent months convinced he'd failed somehow. That if he'd been better, done more, she would have stayed. It took him years to understand that Sarah's choice had nothing to do with him or Oliver. It was about her." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're about to make the same mistake. You're letting Sarah's issues become your reason to leave. And that's not fair to Ethan, or to Oliver." Rachel paused. "Or to you." She said kids always want their real mom. Kids want people who show up, who care, who stay even when it's hard. Rachel's eyes were fierce now. "You've been showing up. Sarah hasn't, for 4 years. But what if she's changed? What if she's ready now?" "Then Ethan will handle it. He's a grown adult with a law degree and custody papers. This isn't your problem to solve by disappearing." Victoria looked down at her hands. "I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" "Be part of a family. I don't know the rules. Don't know where I fit." Her voice cracked. "And I'm terrified I'm going to care too much and then lose it anyway." "That's called being human, Vic. Welcome to the club." "It sucks here." Rachel reached across the desk. "But here's the thing. You don't get guarantees, not in relationships, not in life. You can build all the walls you want, make everything perfect and controlled, but it doesn't protect you. It just keeps you alone." I've been alone my whole life. I'm good at it. That doesn't mean you have to stay that way. Victoria's phone buzzed. Both of them looked at it. Ethan, I don't know what's going on, but I'd really like to talk. Can I come by tonight? Rachel raised her eyebrows. What are you going to say? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Because that man and his kid are the best thing that's happened to you in years. And if you throw it away because you're scared, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. After Rachel left, Victoria sat with her phone for 20 minutes before finally typing. Victoria, okay, come by at 7. He showed up at 6:55, which meant he'd probably been waiting in the lobby for 15 minutes. Victoria let him up, watching the elevator numbers climb with her heart beating too fast. When she opened the door, Ethan looked tired, worried, but he smiled anyway, small and uncertain. Hi, he said. Is he? This is a really nice place. Thanks. Come in. He stepped into the penthouse, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows, the sleek furniture, the art that cost more than most people's cars. Everything perfectly arranged, perfectly curated. Wow, he said quietly. This is different from my house. Yeah. I can't even imagine Oliver in here. He'd break something in the first 5 minutes. Probably. Ethan turned to face her. Okay, I'm not good at this. So I'm just going to ask straight out. What happened? Between tacos on Monday and radio silence on Tuesday? Victoria forced herself to meet his eyes. Sarah called me. His expression shifted. What? She called my office, said she's ready to be Oliver's mom again, that she's coming back and there won't be room for me. Ethan went very still. When was this? Yesterday afternoon. And you didn't think to tell me? I didn't know what to say. How about, hey, your ex called and made threats? That would have been a start. His voice had an edge now. Instead, you canceled dinner, asked for space, and left my kid thinking he did something wrong. I told him, you told him via text that you were busy. That's not the same thing. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. Victoria, I know this is new for you, the relationship thing, the kid thing, all of it, but communication is kind of important. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, the second things got complicated, you shut down. That's not fair, isn't it? He looked around the penthouse again. You've built this whole life where you control everything, where nothing gets messy or unpredictable. And the moment Sarah called and made things uncertain, you retreated back to this. He gestured at the space around them. Where it's safe. You don't understand. Then help me understand. Victoria's throat felt tight. Words were building up, catching, threatening to fracture. She's right. I'm not his mother. I'm not his family. I'm just someone who's been around for a few weeks. And when she comes back, where does that leave me? It leaves you exactly where you were before she called. With me. With Oliver. If you want to be. But what if she's changed? What if she's really ready to be his mom now? Ethan's expression softened slightly. Then we'll deal with it. Together. As a family. I'm not family. Yes, you are. His voice was firm now. Oliver asked me last week if you were going to be his mom someday. You know what I told him? Victoria shook her head, not trusting herself to speak. I said maybe, because that's what I want. Not because Sarah left a vacancy and you happen to be available, but because you're you. Because my kid lights up when you walk in the room. Because you listen to 40-minute lectures about dinosaurs without checking your phone. Because... He stopped, taking a breath. Because I'm falling for you. And I think you're falling for me too. But you're so scared of it that you'd rather run than risk getting hurt. I don't run. You asked for space 24 hours after one phone call from someone who hasn't been in our lives for 4 years. That's running. Victoria felt tears building behind her eyes. What if I can't do this? What if I'm not enough? Enough for what? For him. For Oliver. What if he needs more than I can give? He needs someone who shows up. That's it. That's the whole job. Ethan moved closer. You've been showing up. Even when it's uncomfortable, even when you don't know what you're doing. That's what matters. But Sarah left. She gave up her parental rights. And yeah, she can try to come back, But that doesn't mean I'm going to let her walk back into Oliver's life without a fight. His jaw tightened. That kid has spent 4 years learning that family isn't about biology. It's about who stays. And you've been staying for 6 weeks, which is 6 weeks longer than Sarah has in the last 4 years. Ethan reached for her hand. Look, I get it. This is scary. It's scary for me too. I'm letting someone into my kid's life, which means if this doesn't work out, he gets hurt. That terrifies me. But I'm doing it anyway because the alternative is staying safe and alone, and I'm tired of that. Victoria's voice came out barely above a whisper. What if I mess it up? You will. I will. Everyone messes up. That's part of being human. He squeezed her hand. But you don't get to decide you're going to fail before you even try. I don't know how to be what you need. I need you to be honest, to tell me when you're scared instead of disappearing, to trust that we can figure this out together. He paused. Can you do that? She wanted to say yes, wanted to believe it was that simple, but before she could answer, her phone rang. She glanced at it. Unknown number. Don't answer it, Ethan said, but something made her pick up anyway. Hello? Victoria? It's Sarah. We need to meet. Victoria's hand tightened on the phone. I don't think that's a good idea. Please. I know I came on strong yesterday, but I need to talk to you, face to face, just the two of us. Sarah's voice cracked slightly. I'm at Brennan's coffee house, the place where you met Ethan. Can you come? Sarah, please, just give me 20 minutes. Then if you want me to leave you alone, I will. Victoria looked at Ethan, who was watching her with concern. I'll be there in 30 minutes. She hung up before Sarah could respond. What did she want? Ethan asked. To meet. At the coffee shop. I'm coming with you. No. Victoria, she asked to talk to me. Just me. And I think... She took a breath. I think I need to do this. Why? Because I need to look her in the eye and understand what I'm actually afraid of. Victoria grabbed her keys. I'll text you when I'm done. Vic, but she was already heading for the door. Brennan's coffee house looked exactly the same as it had 2 months ago when she'd first met Ethan here. Same scuffed floors, same acoustic music, same smell of coffee and cinnamon. Sarah was sitting at a corner table, hands wrapped around a cup she wasn't drinking from. She was younger than Victoria expected, maybe 28, blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing jeans and a sweater that had seen better days. She looked up when Victoria approached, and her expression flickered through several emotions too fast to track. Thanks for coming, Sarah said. Victoria sat down without ordering anything. You have 20 minutes. Right. Okay. Sarah took a breath. I'm going to be honest with you because I don't think lies help anyone. I called Ethan this morning, told him I wanted to see Oliver. He said no. Good. Is it? I'm his mother. You gave up that right 4 years ago. Sarah flinched but didn't argue. I made mistakes. I know that. I was 24 when I had Oliver. I wasn't ready. I panicked. And instead of figuring it out, I ran. She looked down at her coffee. I've spent 4 years trying to build a life that made sense. Went back to school, got therapy, worked on myself. And I finally feel like I'm in a place where I could be the mom Oliver deserves. 4 years too late. Maybe, probably. Sarah's voice wavered. But I need to try. I need to at least see him, talk to him, let him know I didn't leave because of him. He already knows that. Ethan made sure of it. Ethan's a good father. He's a great father. I know. Sarah looked up, eyes red. And you're good for them. I can tell. The way Ethan talks about you, the way... She stopped. I'm not here to threaten you. I know that's how yesterday's call sounded, but I was scared and I handled it wrong. What are you here for then? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. I need to know if you're serious about this. About them. Because if you're not, if there's any chance you're going to leave, I need to know now, before I walk away for good. Victoria stared at her. You're asking me to decide your future with your son? I'm asking if there's room for me. If not now, maybe later. When Oliver's older, if he wants to know me. Tears were sliding down Sarah's face now. I'm asking if you're going to be his mom, because if you are, if you're really all in, then I'll step back. I'll let you have that without interference. But if you're not sure, if there's any doubt, then maybe I should fight for my place while I still can. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, but it's real. Sarah wiped at her eyes. So I'm asking, are you all in? Victoria felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Every fear, every doubt, every wall she'd carefully constructed was collapsing under the weight of one simple question. Was she all in? I don't know how to be a mother, Victoria said quietly. Nobody does. You just figure it out as you go. I have a stutter. I run a company. My life is complicated. So? Ethan's a single dad who designs logos. Life is complicated for everyone. Victoria looked at Sarah, really looked at her, and saw something she recognized. Fear, regret, the desperate hope that maybe it wasn't too late to fix what had broken. If I say yes, Victoria said slowly, if I say I'm all in, you need to understand something. Oliver is thriving. He's happy. He has a dad who would move mountains for him and a support system that actually shows up. You don't get to disrupt that because you're finally ready. I know. But maybe someday, when he's older and if he wants to, you could have a relationship with him. Not as his mom. You gave that up. But as someone who cares about him from a distance. Sarah's face crumpled. You'd let me do that? I'd consider it. If Ethan agrees. If Oliver wants it. And only if you prove you're actually stable enough to be in his life without causing damage. That's more than I deserve. Yes, it is. Sarah nodded, wiping at her face with a napkin. For what it's worth, I'm glad it's you. I've been watching from a distance, not creepy watching, just checking in through mutual friends, making sure he was okay. And when I heard about you, I was angry, jealous, because you get to have what I threw away. But you're good for them. I can see that. I'm terrified I'm going to mess it up. Welcome to parenting. That feeling never goes away. Sarah stood, gathering her purse. Take care of my boy. And tell him his mom is sorry. And that she loves him even if she couldn't figure out how to show it. Tell him yourself someday, if you earn it. Sarah nodded and walked out. Victoria sat alone in the coffee shop for a long time after, staring at the table where she'd first met Ethan, where this whole impossible thing had started. Her phone buzzed. Ethan, you okay? Victoria, can you come here to the coffee shop? Ethan, on my way. He arrived 15 minutes later, slightly out of breath like he'd been driving too fast. Slid into the seat across from her with worry written all over his face. What happened? Victoria took a breath. Sarah's not coming back. She wanted to, but I told her Oliver's life was stable and she didn't get to disrupt that. That maybe someday, if she proved herself, she could have a relationship with him. But not now. Ethan blinked. You told her that? Yeah. Why? Because I'm all in. The words came out steady, clear. I'm terrified and I don't know what I'm doing and I'm probably going to mess up 100 times. But I'm all in. With you, with Oliver, with this whole messy, complicated thing. Ethan's expression shifted through surprise, relief, and something that looked a lot like love. Yeah? Yeah. He reached across the table, taking her hand. You know Oliver's going to want to hear this, right? He's been asking every day when you're coming back. I know. I'm sorry I disappeared. Don't apologize. Just don't do it again. I'll try. That's all I'm asking. Ethan stood, pulling her up with him. Come on, let's go home. Home? My house. Our house. Whatever you want to call it. He was smiling now. Oliver made you a welcome back card. It has 18 dinosaurs on it. He counted. Victoria felt something in her chest crack open. Not breaking, but opening. Letting light in for the first time in longer than she could remember. Okay, she said. Let's go home. They drove separately but arrived at the same time. Oliver must have been watching from the window because the front door flew open before they even made it up the walkway. Victoria! He launched himself at her, arms wrapping around her waist. You're back! Dad said you had work stuff, but I knew you'd come back because you promised about the speech thing, and you don't break promises. She hugged him back, this small, fierce person who'd somehow become part of her world. I don't break promises. Good. Come inside. I have so much to tell you. We had a substitute teacher who didn't know anything about dinosaurs, and I had to correct her 3 times. And I finished my fossil kit and found all 12 fossils. And Dad said we could get pizza for dinner if you were here, so we have to get pizza now because you're here. He grabbed her hand and pulled her inside, already talking a mile a minute about everything she'd missed in 3 days. Ethan followed, closing the door behind them, and caught her eye over Oliver's head. She smiled, and he smiled back, and for the first time in Victoria's carefully constructed life, everything felt exactly right in its complete and utter imperfection. The weeks that followed weren't perfect. Victoria had spent too many years believing that success meant eliminating problems, so the reality of daily life with Ethan and Oliver took adjustment. There were mornings when she showed up at their house still thinking about a conference call from the night before, distracted and only half present. There were evenings when Oliver's endless energy collided with her need for quiet, and she had to step outside just to breathe. There were moments when the stutter came back hard, stress or exhaustion pulling the words apart, and she felt the old shame creeping in despite Ethan's patient reassurance. But there were also mornings when she woke up in Ethan's bed, sunlight streaming through curtains that didn't quite close all the way, and heard Oliver singing off-key in his room while getting ready for school. There were evenings when the three of them sat on the couch watching nature documentaries, Oliver wedged between them, explaining facts the narrator had somehow missed. There were moments when she laughed so hard at something ridiculous Ethan said that she forgot to monitor her speech entirely, words flowing free and unguarded. Life, it turned out, was better messy. 2 months after the confrontation with Sarah, Victoria was sitting in Ethan's kitchen reviewing a contract on her laptop when Oliver came home from school and dropped his backpack on the floor with the dramatic sigh of someone who'd had the worst day in recorded history. "I hate presentations," he announced. Victoria looked up. "What happened?" "Mrs. Patterson assigned our spring presentations today. We have to talk for 5 whole minutes about something we're passionate about, in front of everyone, including parents." He slumped into a chair. 5 minutes, Victoria. That's like forever. What are you going to present on? Dinosaurs, obviously. But that's not the point. The point is I have to stand up there and talk, and what if I mess up? What if the words get stuck and everyone stares at me? Victoria closed her laptop. "When's the presentation?" 3 weeks. Okay, so you have time to practice. Practicing doesn't help if I'm nervous. Being nervous makes it worse. Oliver looked genuinely distressed. "What if I embarrass myself?" "You won't." "How do you know?" "Because I've seen you explain dinosaur phylogeny to a table full of adults at that birthday party. You were on fire. You didn't mess up once." "That's different. Those people didn't matter." "And your classmates do?" Oliver thought about this. "I mean, kind of. I have to see them every day. If I mess up, they'll remember forever. Kids remember everything." Victoria understood that fear more than she wanted to admit. "Can I tell you something?" "Yeah. When I was in school, I had to give a presentation in front of my entire class. I was so scared I almost didn't show up." Oliver's eyes widened. "Really? But you talk in front of people all the time now. Dad said you give speeches to, important business people." "I do, but it wasn't always easy. That first presentation I got halfway through and the words just stopped, completely froze, and everyone stared at me exactly like you're afraid they'll stare at you." "What did you do?" "I stood there for what felt like an hour but was probably 10 seconds. Then I took a breath, looked at my notes, and started again, slower this time. And I got through it." "Did people make fun of you?" "Some did. But you know what? I don't remember their names anymore, and I definitely don't care what they thought." Oliver absorbed this. "So you're saying even if I mess up, it's not the end of the world?" "I'm saying messing up is part of trying, and the people who matter won't care if you stumble. They'll just be impressed you got up there in the first place." "Dad says the same thing." "Your dad's smart." "I know." Oliver pulled his backpack toward him, digging out a crumpled assignment sheet. "Mrs. Patterson gave us this whole rubric. We need visual aids in everything. I was thinking maybe I could bring in some of my models, show the difference between theropods and sauropods." "That sounds perfect." "Yeah?" He looked uncertain. "You don't think it's too much?" "I think if you're going to do something, you should do it all the way. Bring the models, make it interesting, show them why dinosaurs matter." Oliver's face brightened slightly. "I do have that really good Triceratops, and the T-Rex with the articulated jaw." "There you go. Will you help me practice?" Dad will too, but you've done more presentations. You probably know tricks. Victoria's throat tightened. Yeah, I can help you practice. Cool. Oliver stood, energized now. I'm going to go plan my visual aids. This is going to be the best presentation Mrs. Patterson's ever seen. He thundered upstairs, leaving Victoria alone with her laptop and a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the coffee she'd been drinking. Ethan came home an hour later, grocery bags in hand, and found her still at the kitchen table. Hey, he said, kissing her temple before setting the bags on the counter. You're here late. Thought you had that investor meeting at 4. Canceled it? Why? Oliver needed to talk, seemed more important. Ethan paused in unpacking groceries. What did he need to talk about? Presentation anxiety. I told him I'd help him practice. He asked you to help him practice? Yeah. Is that okay? Okay? Vic, he barely lets me help him practice. Usually he just locks himself in his room and mumbles at his mirror. Ethan was smiling now. What did you say to him? Just that messing up isn't the end of the world. That the people who matter won't care. And he believed you? I think so. Ethan crossed the kitchen, pulling her up from her chair and into a hug. You're really good at this, you know that? At what? Being here. Being present. Being exactly what he needs. Victoria leaned into him, letting herself be held. I canceled a meeting with a guy who wanted to invest $8 million in a tech startup. Worth it? Completely. They stood like that for a moment, comfortable in the quiet, before Oliver's voice drifted down from upstairs. Dad, can Victoria stay for dinner? We're having spaghetti and I need to show her my presentation outline. Ethan pulled back, grinning. I think you're stuck with us tonight. Good, Victoria said, and meant it. The next 3 weeks became a crash course in presentation prep. Oliver practiced every night, standing in the living room with his models arranged on the coffee table, delivering his speech about the Mesozoic era with increasing confidence. Victoria sat on the couch offering feedback. Slow down here, make eye contact there, take a breath before this part. Ethan filmed run-throughs on his phone so Oliver could watch himself and see what worked. Some nights were better than others. There was the evening when Oliver got frustrated and threw his note cards across the room because he kept stumbling over Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event. There was the morning when he woke up, convinced he couldn't do it, and tried to fake sick to avoid school. There was the moment, 2 days before the presentation, when he looked at Victoria with genuine fear and said, "What if I let everyone down?" "You won't," she'd told him. "But what if I do?" "Then we'll still be proud of you for trying." The night before the presentation, Oliver was too nervous to sleep. Victoria found him sitting on his bed at 9:30, models spread around him, index cards clutched in shaking hands. "Hey," she said from the doorway. "You okay?" "No, I'm freaking out." "Want to talk about it?" He nodded, and she sat down beside him, careful not to disturb the careful arrangement of dinosaurs. "What if I freeze?" Oliver asked quietly. "Like you did in your presentation. What if I just stop talking and can't start again?" "Then you take a breath and start again. Just like I did." "What if people laugh?" "Some might. People laugh when they're uncomfortable. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong." "What if my voice gets stuck? What if the stutter comes back really bad and everyone notices?" Victoria's heart squeezed. "Then you do what Miss Chen taught you. Breathe through it. Take your time. The words will come." "You promise?" "I promise the words will come. I can't promise it'll be perfect. But perfect isn't the goal. Doing your best is." Oliver looked down at his note cards. "I really want to do good." "You will." "How do you know?" "Because I've watched you practice for 3 weeks. You know this stuff backward and forward. And more importantly, you love it. When you talk about dinosaurs, you light up. That's what people will remember. Not whether you stumbled on a word, but how much you care." Oliver was quiet for a moment. Then, "Will you be there? At the presentation?" "If you want me to be." "I do. Dad's coming, obviously. But I want you there too, for moral support." "Then I'll be there." "What if I look at you and I'm too nervous and I mess up because you're watching?" "Then look at your dad. Or look at your models, or look at the back wall. Whatever helps." "Okay."
Oliver took a shaky breath. Okay, I can do this. You can definitely do this. Victoria? Yeah? Thanks for helping and for not thinking I'm dumb for being scared. You're not dumb. Being scared means it matters to you. That's a good thing. He hugged her then, quick and fierce, before pulling back and gathering his note cards. I should probably sleep. Mrs. Patterson says being tired makes everything harder. Mrs. Patterson's right. Victoria stood, heading for the door when Oliver called out again. Hey, Victoria. She turned back. I'm really glad you're here, like, in general, not just for the presentation. Her vision blurred slightly. Me too, kiddo. Me too. The presentation was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Victoria cleared her entire afternoon, ignoring Marcus's pointed questions about why a second-grade presentation required her physical presence.
Ethan had already taken the day off, and they drove to the school together, arriving early enough to find seats in the 2 small chairs arranged in rows at the back of Mrs. Patterson's classroom. The room was decorated with student artwork and alphabet posters, windows looking out onto a playground where kids were currently at recess. Victoria could see Oliver through the glass, standing with a group of friends near the swings, gesturing wildly about something.
He looks okay, Ethan said, following her gaze. He was terrified last night. He's always terrified right before. Then he gets up there and does fine. Other parents filtered in, claiming chairs, checking phones. Victoria recognized a few from the birthday party months ago. One woman, Tommy's mom, she thought, waved at Ethan with the familiarity of someone who'd been doing this parent thing for a while.
At 1:55, the kids came back from recess, filing into the classroom with the chaotic energy of second graders who'd been told to settle down but hadn't quite managed it yet. Oliver spotted them immediately, his face cycling through relief and panic before settling on determination. He waved. Ethan waved back. Victoria gave him a thumbs up. Mrs. Patterson, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and the patient demeanor of someone who'd spent decades wrangling 7-year-olds, clapped her hands for attention. All right, friends, we have a very special afternoon ahead of us. You've all worked so hard on your presentations, and I'm excited to see what you've learned. Remember our rules? Be respectful listeners, save questions for the end, and support your classmates. She consulted her clipboard. First up, we have Emma talking about ballet. Emma, a small girl with her hair in a tight bun, walked to the front of the room with a poster board covered in pictures. She talked about pirouettes and pliés, demonstrated a few positions, and sat down to polite applause. Then Tommy presented on soccer. Then a girl named Maya talked about her pet rabbit. Then 2 more kids went, and Victoria could see Oliver getting more nervous with each presentation that passed. Finally, Mrs. Patterson called his name. Oliver Brooks, you're up. Come show us what you've got. Oliver stood, gathering his models and note cards with shaking hands. He walked to the front of the room, set everything on Mrs. Patterson's desk, and turned to face the class. For a moment, he just stood there. Victoria's heart was pounding. Beside her, Ethan had gone completely still. Then Oliver took a breath, just like they'd practiced, and began. Hi, my name is Oliver Brooks, and today I'm going to talk about dinosaurs. Specifically, why the Mesozoic era was the most important time in Earth's history. His voice was steady, clear. He held up the Triceratops model. This is a Triceratops. It lived in the late Cretaceous period, about 68 to 66 million years ago. A lot of people think dinosaurs were just big, scary monsters, but that's not true. They were complex animals with different behaviors and adaptations. He was doing it, actually doing it. Oliver moved through his presentation with the confidence of someone who'd practiced 100 times. He explained the 3 periods of the Mesozoic era, showed the differences between carnivores and herbivores, talked about the asteroid impact that ended it all. His hands barely shook. His voice only caught once, on Cretaceous, and he paused, breathed, and continued without missing a beat. The other kids were actually paying attention. Even the ones who'd been fidgeting during previous presentations sat still, watching Oliver manipulate his models and explain concepts that were probably above second-grade level, but delivered in a way that made them accessible. When he finished, there was a moment of silence. Then the class erupted in applause. Mrs. Patterson was beaming. That was excellent, Oliver. Very well researched. Does anyone have questions? 5 hands shot up. Oliver answered each one, relaxing more with every question. When a kid asked if velociraptors could have been pets, Oliver launched into an explanation about pack hunting behavior that had Mrs. Patterson gently cutting him off with a laugh. I think we could listen to you talk about dinosaurs all day, Oliver, but we have more presentations to get through. Excellent work. You can sit down. Oliver gathered his models and returned to his seat, and Victoria saw the exact moment the adrenaline hit him. His hands started shaking for real now, the nervous energy that had been held at bay by focus finally breaking through. But he'd done it. The presentations continued, but Victoria barely registered them. She was too busy watching Oliver, who kept glancing back at them with a smile that said everything about how he was feeling. After the last presentation, Mrs. Patterson thanked everyone for coming and dismissed the class. Parents filtered out, kids grabbed backpacks, and Oliver made a beeline for Ethan and Victoria. "Did you see?" he asked, practically vibrating. "I didn't mess up. Well, I kind of messed up on one word, but I fixed it and kept going, and nobody even noticed." "You were amazing," Ethan said, pulling him into a hug. "Seriously amazing," Victoria added. "Best presentation in the whole class." "You have to say that. You're biased." "Doesn't make it less true." Oliver's teacher approached, smiling. "Mr. Brooks?" "Victoria? I'm so glad you could make it. Oliver did wonderfully." "He really did," Ethan said. Mrs. Patterson looked at Oliver. "You should be very proud of yourself. I know public speaking isn't easy for you, but you worked hard and it showed." "I had help," Oliver said, glancing at Victoria. "Victoria taught me tricks about breathing and not rushing." "Well, the tricks worked. Keep it up." Mrs. Patterson moved on to talk to other parents, leaving the three of them standing in the hallway. "Ice cream?" Ethan suggested. "I feel like this deserves ice cream." "Definitely ice cream," Oliver agreed. The biggest sundae they have. I earned it." "You absolutely did." They went to the same ice cream place they'd visited once before, and Oliver ordered something with 6 toppings and enough whipped cream to constitute a structural hazard. He talked nonstop about the presentation, reliving every moment, analyzing what went well and what he'd do differently next time. "Next time I think I'll bring my big poster too, the one with the timeline, because some kids didn't understand the difference between the periods and visual aids help." He took a massive bite of ice cream. "And I think I should practice the Q&A part more because I wasn't expecting that many questions." "You handled them great," Victoria said. "Yeah, but I could have been better, more prepared." "You can always improve," Ethan said. "But you also need to celebrate what you accomplished today. You got up there scared out of your mind and did it anyway. That's huge." Oliver considered this, then nodded. "Yeah, I guess it is pretty huge." They finished their ice cream and drove home, Oliver still buzzing with post-presentation energy. When they pulled into the driveway, he hopped out of the car and ran inside to call his Aunt Claire and tell her everything. Ethan and Victoria followed more slowly. "Thank you," Ethan said as they walked up to the house. "For what?" "For being there. For helping him practice. For caring enough to cancel meetings and show up." He stopped at the front door. "He wouldn't have done as well without you. He would have been fine. Maybe, but he was better with you there." Inside, they could hear Oliver on the phone, his voice carrying through the house. "And then I held up the Triceratops and everyone was paying attention, and I didn't even get nervous. Well, I got a little nervous, but I breathed through it like Victoria taught me." Victoria felt something shift in her chest, something settling into place that she hadn't known was misaligned. This was family. Not the version she'd grown up with, cold and controlled and contingent on perfection. But this messy, loud, imperfect version where showing up mattered more than succeeding, where effort counted more than outcomes, where love wasn't earned but freely given. "Hey," Ethan said softly. "You okay?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "You sure? You look like you're about to cry." "I'm fine, just—" She took a breath. "Just happy." He pulled her close, and they stood like that in the doorway while Oliver's voice drifted through the house, telling Claire about Triceratops and breathing techniques, and the best presentation Mrs. Patterson had ever seen. 3 weeks later, Oliver's speech therapy graduation arrived. The ceremony was held in the community center, a modest room with folding chairs and a small stage decorated with encouraging posters. About 20 kids were graduating, ranging from age 5 to 12, each having completed their therapy program and met their goals. Victoria sat between Ethan and Claire, watching families filter in. Some kids looked nervous, others excited. Parents clutched cameras and phones, ready to document everything. Oliver was backstage with the other graduates, and Victoria could picture him pacing, reviewing his speech, doing the breathing exercises Miss Chen had taught him. Miss Chen herself appeared on stage, a woman in her 30s with a warm smile and the kind of presence that made you feel immediately at ease. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here to celebrate these incredible kids. Speech therapy is hard work. It requires patience, persistence, and a whole lot of courage. Every child here has demonstrated all three, and I couldn't be prouder of them. She introduced each graduate one by one. They came on stage, received a certificate, and said a few words about what they'd learned. Some speeches were short, others longer. Every single one was met with thunderous applause from proud families. Then it was Oliver's turn. "Oliver Brooks," Miss Chen announced. He walked onto the stage in his best clothes, khakis and a button-down shirt that Ethan had insisted on, hair combed neatly. He looked so much older than the 7-year-old who'd interrogated Victoria about dinosaurs in a coffee shop months ago. Miss Chen handed him his certificate, and he stepped up to the microphone. "Hi," he said, voice slightly amplified. "My name is Oliver Brooks. I've been in speech therapy for 2 years because I have a stutter." He paused, looking out at the audience. Victoria saw him find Ethan, then her, and his expression steadied. "When I first started therapy, I hated it. I thought it meant something was wrong with me. I thought if I just tried harder, I could talk normal. But Miss Chen taught me that there's no such thing as normal. There's just different ways of communicating, and all of them are okay." Another pause. He was reading from note cards, but not relying on them completely. "Speech therapy taught me tricks. How to breathe when words get stuck. How to take my time instead of rushing. How to be patient with myself when things don't come out right the first time." He looked at his note cards, then back up. "But the most important thing it taught me is that I don't have to be perfect. I just have to try." Victoria felt tears building behind her eyes. "I want to thank Miss Chen for being patient with me even when I got frustrated. I want to thank my dad for bringing me to therapy 3 times a week and never making me feel bad about it. I want to thank my Aunt Claire for practicing with me, and I want to thank Victoria." His eyes found her again. "For showing me that you can do hard things even when you're scared, and that having a stutter doesn't mean you can't do anything you want." He was crying now, just a little, but his voice stayed steady. "So yeah, that's what I learned. Thank you." The applause was deafening. Oliver stepped away from the microphone, certificate clutched in his hand, and walked off stage. Victoria was crying openly now, and she wasn't the only one. Claire was wiping at her eyes. Ethan had his jaw clenched in that way he did when he was trying not to lose it completely. After all the graduates had spoken, Miss Chen wrapped up the ceremony with a few final words about courage and growth and the importance of celebrating progress. Then families surged forward to collect their kids, and Victoria found herself swept up in the crowd. Oliver emerged from backstage and immediately launched himself at Ethan, who caught him in a hug that lifted him off the ground. "I'm so proud of you," Ethan said, voice thick. "So incredibly proud." "I did good?" "You did amazing." Oliver pulled back, then turned to Victoria. "Did I say your name right? I practiced it like 50 times because I wanted to make sure I didn't mess it up." "You said it perfectly." "Good. Because I meant what I said, about you showing me that scared is okay. You did show me that." Victoria crouched down to his level. "You showed me too, that trying is what matters, not being perfect. We're pretty good at teaching each other stuff." "Yeah, we are." He hugged her then, tight and unselfconscious, and Victoria held on maybe a little longer than necessary, this small person who'd somehow become one of the most important people in her life. When they finally pulled apart, Claire was there with her phone, having captured the whole moment. "I'm sending this to Mom," she said. "She's going to lose her mind." "Your mom doesn't even know who I am," Victoria pointed out. "She knows you're the woman who makes my brother smile like an idiot. That's enough." Claire showed Oliver the photo. "Look at you, kid, graduating and giving speeches. What's next? Running for president?" "Maybe. I have good public speaking skills now." They took photos. Awkward family photos where nobody quite knew where to stand until Miss Chen volunteered to take one of all four of them together. Then they went out for dinner at the nice restaurant Oliver had been promised, where he ordered the most expensive thing on the menu and talked nonstop about speech therapy and presentations and how he was thinking about joining the debate team when he got to middle school. Later that night, after Oliver had gone to bed and Claire had driven home, Victoria and Ethan sat on the couch in the quiet house. "He mentioned you in his speech," Ethan said. "I heard. In front of everyone, just claimed you as part of his life." "I noticed that too." Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then, "I've been thinking about something." "Yeah?" "About what this is. What we are." He shifted to face her. "We've been doing this for almost 5 months now. You're here most nights. You've got a drawer in my dresser and a toothbrush in the bathroom, and Oliver asks for you when you're not around. And I just..." He took a breath. "I want to make it official." Victoria's heart started pounding. "Official how?" "Move in. Not eventually, not someday. Now. Bring your stuff. Make this your home. Stop splitting time between your penthouse and here. Just be here." "Ethan, I know it's fast. I know your life is complicated and this house is nothing like what you're used to. But I also know that you fit here. With us. And I'm tired of pretending this is casual when it's the most important thing in my life." Victoria looked around the living room, at Oliver's backpack by the door, at the photos on the wall, at the worn furniture that had been here longer than she'd known them. This house that had become more home than anywhere she'd ever lived. "I don't know how to give up control," she said quietly. "I'm not asking you to give up control. I'm asking you to share it. What if I'm terrible at it?" "You won't be. And if you are, we'll figure it out together." "What about Oliver? Shouldn't you talk to him first?" "I did. Last week. Asked him how he'd feel if you lived here permanently. Want to know what he said?" "What?" "He said, 'Finally. It's weird that she keeps leaving. She should just stay.'" Despite everything, Victoria laughed. "He said that?" Direct quote. She looked at Ethan, really looked at him. This man who'd somehow seen past every wall she'd built, who'd made space for her in his life without asking her to change, who loved her not despite her flaws, but with them included. "Okay," she said. "Okay? Okay. I'll move in." Ethan's face broke into the biggest smile she'd ever seen. "Yeah? Yeah. But fair warning, I have a lot of stuff, and I work weird hours. And sometimes I need quiet when Oliver's being loud. We'll figure it out. And I've never lived with anyone before. I might be terrible at it." "You won't be. You don't know that. I know enough." He pulled her close, kissing her with the kind of certainty that made all her doubts feel smaller. "We'll figure it out, together." The next month was chaos. Victoria hired movers for her furniture, most of which didn't fit in Ethan's house and ended up in storage. She kept the important things. Her desk, some art, her extensive book collection that Oliver immediately wanted to catalog by subject. She sold the penthouse to a tech executive who didn't blink at the asking price, and used part of the money to renovate Ethan's kitchen because the cabinets were falling apart and the oven only worked on 2 settings. Oliver helped her unpack, claiming it was his job to make sure everything went in the right place. He had opinions about where her books should go, where her clothes should hang, which drawer in the bathroom should be hers. "This one," he said, pointing to the middle drawer, "because the bottom one is Dad's and the top one is mine, and the middle one is perfect for you because you're in the middle." "In the middle of what?" "Of our family, like the connecting piece." Victoria had to step out of the room for a minute after that one. There were adjustments. The house was smaller than what she was used to, and sometimes she felt claustrophobic. The noise level was higher. Oliver wasn't capable of doing anything quietly, and Ethan had a habit of playing music while he worked. There were mornings when Victoria woke up disoriented, forgetting where she was, before remembering this was home now. But there were also mornings when she woke up to Oliver jumping on the bed, announcing it was Saturday and they were making pancakes. There were evenings when she and Ethan cooked dinner together while Oliver did homework at the kitchen table, the 3 of them existing in comfortable parallel. There were nights when they watched movies, Oliver wedged between them, falling asleep halfway through and having to be carried to bed. Work became different too. Victoria started leaving at 5 p.m. regularly, delegating more to Marcus and her team. She turned down a merger opportunity that would have required constant travel and instead focused on investments she could manage remotely. The company didn't collapse. In fact, it thrived under her slightly less obsessive management style. "You seem happier," Marcus observed one day. "Less intense." Is that a compliment? It's an observation. You're still terrifying, don't worry. But you're also like a person now. It's weird. Thanks, Marcus. Very touching. I'm serious, though. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. It's working. What she was doing was building a life that didn't revolve entirely around work, was showing up for school plays and field trips and parent-teacher conferences, was learning how to be part of a family that didn't require her to be perfect, just present. 6 months after moving in, on a random Tuesday in October, Ethan came home from a client meeting looking nervous. "Can we talk?" he asked. Victoria looked up from her laptop. That's never a good opening. "It's not bad, just important." He sat down beside her on the couch. "Oliver's been asking questions again." "About what?" "About you, about us, about whether you're going to stay forever." "What did you tell him?" "That I hope so, but he's 7 and hope so isn't a satisfying answer." Ethan took her hand. "So I wanted to ask you directly. Are you going to stay? Where's this coming from? From me wanting to know if I should start planning for a future that includes you permanently, or if this is still temporary, testing it out?" Victoria set her laptop aside. "You think after 6 months of living here, helping raise your kid, dealing with your disaster of a kitchen renovation, I'm still testing it out?" "I don't know. You've never said explicitly." "Ethan, I sold my penthouse. I moved my entire life here. I go to parent-teacher conferences and pack school lunches and know the names of all of Oliver's friends. What part of that seems temporary?" "The part where you've never actually said you're staying." He had a point. She'd been so focused on showing up, on being present, that she'd never put it into words. "I'm staying," she said clearly. "For as long as you'll have me. Permanently." Ethan let out a breath. "Okay, good. Because I have something I want to ask you, and it only works if you're staying." "What?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Victoria's heart stopped. "Wait," she said. "Wait. Is that—" "Just hold on." Ethan opened the box, revealing a simple ring, white gold, single stone, nothing flashy. "I'm not doing the whole getting on one knee thing because my knee's bad and we're both sitting down and this is already awkward enough." "Ethan, let me finish. I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks trying to figure out the right moment, and I finally realized there isn't a right moment. There's just this. Us. On a Tuesday night with your laptop still open and Oliver upstairs probably eavesdropping." He took her hand again. "Victoria Hale, you are the most unexpected thing that's ever happened to me. You're brilliant and terrifying and you care so much even when you pretend you don't. You make Oliver laugh, and you make me remember what it's like to want something beyond just surviving. And I love you. Completely. Even the parts you think are flaws." Victoria couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at this man who'd somehow become her entire world. "So I'm asking, will you marry me? Will you stay permanently, officially, legally? Will you be Oliver's mom and my wife and part of this weird little family we've built?" From upstairs, very clearly, they heard Oliver whisper yell, "Say yes." Ethan closed his eyes. He's definitely eavesdropping. "Obviously," Victoria managed, and then she was crying and laughing and nodding all at once. "Yes, yes, I'll marry you." Ethan's face broke into pure relief. "Yeah?" "Yeah." He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, which meant he'd been planning this, and kissed her while Oliver's footsteps thundered down the stairs. "She said yes!" Oliver burst into the living room. "I heard her say yes!" "You were supposed to stay upstairs," Ethan said. "I was upstairs. I just wasn't not listening." Oliver threw himself at them, wrapping his arms around both of them. "Does this mean Victoria's officially my mom now?" Ethan looked at Victoria, letting her answer. She pulled Oliver closer. "If you want me to be." "I definitely want you to be. I've wanted you to be for months. I just didn't know if I was allowed to say it." "You're allowed to say it." "Cool. Can I call you Mom?"
Victoria's throat closed up completely. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Awesome. Mom, that's weird to say, but also really good. I'm going to go call Aunt Claire and tell her. He pulled away, already halfway to the stairs. And then can we get pizza? Because this seems like a pizza-level celebration. We can definitely get pizza, Ethan called after him. They sat there in the sudden quiet, Victoria's hand in Ethan's, the ring catching the light. That went well, Ethan said. You planned that whole speech. I did. Practiced it like 15 times. It was perfect. So are you. I'm really not. You are to us. He kissed her again, soft and certain. Welcome to the family, Vic. Officially. I've been part of the family. Now it's legal. They got married 3 months later in a small ceremony at the same coffee shop where they'd first met. Rachel officiated, crying through the entire thing. Claire stood as Ethan's best man, wearing a suit and making jokes about finally getting a sister who could help her gang up on her brother. Marcus gave Victoria away, looking uncomfortable in formal wear but grinning the whole time. Oliver served as ring bearer, taking his job so seriously that he walked slower than the bride, making sure each step was exactly right. Victoria wore a simple dress, no veil, hair down. Ethan wore a suit he'd bought specifically for this and would probably never wear again. Oliver wore his dinosaur tie and mismatched socks because he'd insisted they were lucky. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves. Ethan's were funny and sweet, promising to always laugh at Victoria's terrible jokes and to never judge her for working too much. Victoria's were shorter, simpler, harder to get through without crying. I didn't think I'd ever have this, she said, voice breaking on every other word. A family, a home, someone who saw all of me and stayed anyway. But you did. Both of you. And I promise to show up every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I promise to be here. She got through it. Barely. But she got through it. When they kissed, Oliver cheered louder than anyone. The reception was held in the coffee shop's back room, which they'd rented for the afternoon. There was cake, champagne for the adults, and sparkling cider for Oliver, toast that made everyone laugh and cry in equal measure. Rachel cornered Victoria near the cake table. I told you. Told me what? That he was a good guy. That you should give him a chance. You were right. I'm always right. You should listen to me more often. Rachel hugged her tight. I'm really happy for you, Vic. You deserve this. I didn't do anything to deserve it. You showed up. You stayed. That's everything. Later, when the party had wound down and most people had left, Victoria found Oliver sitting at a table drawing on a napkin. Hey, she said, sliding into the chair beside him. Having fun? Yeah, this was a good wedding, not boring like some weddings. Glad you approve. He kept drawing. Looked like a dinosaur naturally. Can I ask you something? Always. Now that you're married to Dad, are you going to change? Like, be different? Victoria considered the question. I don't think so. Why? Because some of my friends, their parents got married and then things got weird. Like they stopped being fun or started being strict about different stuff. I promise I'm not going to suddenly become strict. You'll have to keep dealing with the same person you've been dealing with. Good, because I like the person I've been dealing with. Oliver set down his marker. I'm glad you said yes. To the proposal, I mean. Dad was really nervous about asking. Were you nervous? A little, but I also knew you'd say yes. How? Because you're already here. Like, really here. The ring and the wedding, that's just making it official. But you've been my mom for a while already. Victoria had to look away, blinking back tears for what felt like the 100th time that day. Oliver patted her arm. It's okay to cry at weddings. Everyone does it. You're not crying. I cried earlier. When you were saying your vows, Dad didn't see, but Aunt Claire did. She gave me a tissue. That was nice of her. She's good like that. Oliver picked up his marker again. So now what? What do you mean? I mean, we did the wedding. What happens next? Victoria thought about it. Thought about the life they'd built, the future they were building, all the ordinary days and extraordinary moments that lay ahead. Now we just live, she said. We go home, we have regular days, we keep showing up for each other. That's it. That's kind of boring. Sometimes boring is good. I guess.
Oliver finished his drawing, held it up. Look, I made a wedding dinosaur. It has a bow tie. It's perfect. I know, I'm very talented. They sat there together while the coffee shop staff cleaned up around them, while Ethan talked with the last few guests, while the afternoon faded into evening outside the windows. Victoria looked at the ring on her finger, at this kid who'd somehow become hers, at the man across the room who'd seen past every wall she'd built and loved her anyway. She'd spent 30 years constructing a life based on control, perfection, never showing weakness, and it had taken a blind date, a 7-year-old with dinosaur obsession, and a man who didn't care that her words sometimes broke to teach her that the best things in life were the ones you couldn't plan. The messy things, the imperfect things, the things that required you to show up scared and do it anyway. Ready to go home? Ethan asked, appearing beside them. Oliver jumped up. Can we stop for ice cream on the way? You just had cake. Cake isn't ice cream. They're completely different food groups. That's not how food groups work. It is in my food groups. They argued about it all the way to the car, Oliver presenting increasingly creative arguments for why wedding days required both cake and ice cream, Ethan holding firm until Oliver deployed his ultimate weapon, asking Victoria for her opinion. I think 1 scoop wouldn't hurt, she said. See? Mom agrees with me. Ethan looked at her over Oliver's head. You realize you just set a dangerous precedent? I'm aware. He's going to use that against us forever. Probably. Worth it? Victoria looked at Oliver, already racing ahead to the car, looked at Ethan, smiling at her like she was the best decision he'd ever made. Completely worth it. They got ice cream. Oliver got 2 scoops instead of 1 because the kid behind the counter recognized him from school and gave him an extra scoop for free. They sat at a table outside even though it was cold, Oliver swinging his legs and talking about which of his friends had cried at the ceremony and whether dinosaurs would have worn bow ties if they'd had thumbs. And Victoria, who'd built an empire from nothing, who'd spent 3 decades convinced she had to be perfect to be loved, sat with melting ice cream and mismatched chairs in a family she hadn't planned for, and felt more successful than she'd ever felt closing a deal. Because this messy, imperfect, beautiful life was what winning actually looked like. And she'd never been happier to lose control.